StatsCan announced a couple of months ago, for the first time in history, there are now more people over the age of 65 in Canada than there are under the age of 14. This is not good news for a nation of 34 million people that has to compete with countries populated by hundreds of millions of people. It's even less good news for those of you who are going to have to pay for my pension. But the question is, what do we do about it? Increasing immigration is one answer. And the government's recent announcement to do just that, I think, was very much welcome. For the same reason, ensuring that young families across the country are given the help that they need in changing times is essential. And governments are increasingly doing so. What makes no sense, however, is the failure to provide the supports required by Indigenous children, who represent the fastest growing segment of our population. What do? We underfund their education. We underfund their health care. We underfund their welfare. And we provide them with undrinkable water. And if they live in the far north, we make it as difficult as possible for a mother to have a baby, preferring to exile her to some southern birthing sector away from her family for weeks on end. Heaven forbid that there should be birthing centers in reserved communities up north. And that is but the beginning. For as Jane Philpott said last week, sooner or later, almost 50%, you think about those numbers, 50% of Indigenous children eventually find themselves in foster homes, mostly non-Indigenous foster homes, with all the negativity that comes with that. And the reason why these children end up in foster homes can be as simple and as unfair as the mother's poverty, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. You're poor. You can't take care of your children. Heaven forbid that we should give you the money that will help you do it. We'll just take your children away. And boy, that will really help the country. So, what must we do? Well, McGill's Cindy Blackstock said, and I agree with her, that we must do whatever it takes to ensure that future generations of Indigenous Canadians do not have to spend their lives recovering from their childhoods. I'll tell you, and I suspect that most of you are the same thing. We all have a number of friends, people who are First Nations, Métis or Inuit, who succeeded enormously in academia or in other things. And they become your friends, and after a while, they're roughly your age, and I've got a lot of age, and you sit down there and you talk to somebody who has succeeded, and he starts to cry as he starts to think of a childhood that was 50, 60, 70 years earlier, and he talks about what happened to them. And you understand that how many people who can't face up to that, who don't have the resilience to face up to that, have suffered. But these are people who have succeeded, and they haven't been able to forget what happened to them in their childhood. And that is our legacy. And so, my view is, when Cindy Blackstock said that what we have got to do is to do whatever it takes to help Indigenous Canadians who have now spent their whole lives recovering from their childhoods, that is my issue for this panel. The question is, how do we break the cycle? How do we help fulfill a child's dreams? And while there's not enough time to go into the details now during the discussion, what I would like to do is to suggest to you what I believe is the path ahead. Morally, economically, but as well it is an approach born of First Nations traditions, one that has everything to do with parenting. And by the way, and I will explain this, it has a lot to do with the reason for public policy schools. Back to you.